Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about the different parts of the human skeleton and the different kinds of joints that we have in our body. So when we say different parts of a human skeleton, we mean the different bones, the major bones that are present in our body that build our skeleton. So let's start with this. So materials required for this particular experiment are you need a diagram of a human skeleton, maybe in the form of a chart, or if possible, you can get a model of the human skeleton, or you can also use charts of joints or maybe models of various types of joints. So first of all, let us talk about the human skeleton. So what you see here, there are two terms mentioned here, anterior and posterior. First of all, it's very important to understand what is meant by anterior and what is meant by posterior. So anterior is the front side of your body. So this is the anterior side of your body, the front. And posterior is the rear or the back side of your body, this like what is there behind you. So if you look at the skeleton from the front, it gives you an anterior view, and if you look at the skeleton from the back side, it gives you a posterior view. So from the anterior view, what are the major bones that are visible? First of all, the skull. This is our skull. It's visible both from the anterior as well as the posterior ends. That is why it has been labeled on both the figures. Next, as you go down, you have the shoulder bone here, which is also known as the clavicle. Going further down, you have the chest bone. Exactly in the center of your chest, you have this bone, which is known as the sternum. Then going down further, this is your hip girdle, also known as the pelvic girdle, which further going down is connected to the legs. So this bone, just follow my pointer, this is the longest bone that we have in our body, and it is known as the femur. Then we have our knees. On the knee, there is a kneecap, which is known as the patella, which is visible only from the anterior view. Going down further, there are two long bones. The thicker one is known as the tibia, and the thinner one is known as the fibula. So tibia and fibula, these are two bones that are connecting your feet to your femur, and then there is a like a bunch of small bones which are known as tarsals. You also have a similar kind of like small little bones here at your wrist, which enable the wrist to move around. Similarly, they also enable your foot to move around comfortably and easily in all the directions. So in case of feet, it is known as tarsals. In case of hands, it is known as carpals. Then just like you have these long bones here in the palm of your hand, you call them the metacarpals in the hand. So in the feet, they are known as metatarsals. So metacarpals are the long bones you have in the palm of your hand, and metatarsals are the long bones that you have in your feet. Then these digits, the fingers, the thumb, these are the phalanges. Similarly, in the toes of your feet, you have the phalanges again. So these are some major bones that are visible from the anterior view. Now let us talk about the posterior view. We have already discussed about the skull. Going down, you have this bone here at the back side. It is kind of triangular in shape. You call it the scapula. That is also known as the shoulder blade. Then in the exact center of your back, you have the backbone, which is actually the vertebral column. So vertebral column is visible from the anterior view also, but it's only a part of the vertebral column that is visible from the anterior view. So if you want to have a complete look, you need to have a look at it from the posterior end. Then in the pelvic girdle, there are further bones are present in it. This is the ilium, this is the ischium, and this is the pubis. So these are the major bones that are present in the human skeleton. I think I missed out this one. This is the longest bone, that not the longest bone. In fact, it is this bone that is connecting the shoulder and the forearm. We call it the humerus. Then going further, there are two bones present in this part of your arm, forearm, radius and the ulna. So these are the major bones of the human skeleton. This is the first kind of joint that we have in our body. That is the ball and socket joint. So what does it look like? There's a socket, just like you have the electrical socket in which you plug in your devices, and the bone has a ball-like structure at its head, and that ball fits into that socket, and that enables like easy movement. So where do you find this joint? This joint is found in the hip girdle. So the figure that you are seeing here on your screen, this is the acetabulum of the hip bone. That means there's a socket present here. And femur, as I said earlier, this is the longest bone of your body, and the head of the femur fits into this acetabulum, just like you can see in the figure there. It goes in like this, and this is what allows the easy movement of a leg. We can actually move our leg in all the four directions. We can rotate our legs. It is only because of this ball and socket joint. You also have a similar kind of joint present in the shoulder. So if you look at your shoulder, you can like actually rotate your arm around. It is only because of the presence of this ball and socket joint. Next is a hinge joint. So what is a hinge joint? Hinge is something that allows movement only in one direction, just like you have the hinges of a door. So if you look at your elbow, it can come back like this, but if you extend it forward, you cannot make it go down. It will become straight, and then it can move in one direction only. So that means only one direction movement is possible. Similar kind of joint you will also find in your knees. So this is a hinge joint. Next is a pivot joint. So this is your skull and this is the lower body. So in your neck you have a pivot joint. So what is a pivot? A pivot is something like this, on which the skull is fixed, and that allows like the skull to rotate, or maybe like turn around like this, like this, like this. Like we can almost rotate our neck in all the directions. So that is what is a pivot joint. Last is a fixed joint. We have already discussed about it when I was telling you about cranium, that like the cranium is not one bone. It is a number of bones, but the thing is that the bones, they are joined together, they are fused together. So that makes it a fixed joint. As far as the skull is concerned, only one, this lower jaw is movable. Rest all of the bones that are present in the skull, they are all fixed joints. So this is the lumboid suture, this is the squamous suture, and this is the coronal suture. So there are three different joints that are present in the cranium itself. So what is the cranium? It is the part of the skull that covers the brain. So this is about fixed joints. Now I think you should be able to identify the different types of joints that are present in your body and note it down in your notebook.